So I'll call to order the work session for the Waxhaw Board of Commissioners. It is really a business discussion on Waxhaw's growth strategy to prepare us for the Union County Comprehensive Plan Study retreat, as they're calling it, that we're having. Jeff Wells is going to lead us in this discussion. Within that discussion, we're going to, at the appropriate time, talk about Main Street and the economic development work that's coming ahead, as well as at the end, we're going to go through together the survey that Union County sent out and an attempt to have consensus on a unified survey response back to Union County coming from Jeff representing the leadership team in the town. So without further ado, Jeff, join us. And thank you for getting the slides out a day ahead of time so we had a chance to just kind of familiarize and arm ourselves with questions.
Thank you, Mayor, and appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. And what I figured I would do is I could, I guess, pretend that you are the Union County Board of Commissioners and give our presentation as if I'm speaking to the Board of Commissioners. I know we have a 45-minute time limit allotted to us. I timed the presentation and it's roughly 25 minutes, and I can go through that, and then afterwards, if the board has any questions and any other concerns or thoughts or anything in between, then we can go back through and move forward or adjust anything accordingly as you see fit.
The intent, though, is when you go through with the county commissioners that they will ask questions along the way, correct?
From what I understand from the format of it is, in fact, I have this in front of me. They say it's not a round table discussion or open forum format. There will be future opportunities during the comprehensive planning update for additional input. So I understand that they would like to have a presentation from us with the opportunity at the end of it for questions. So hence,
okay,
with the 45-minute time window, I figured I'd better stay within like a 25-minute time frame and then leave room for questions for the county afterwards, and
okay,
see where all this lands. But we'll move forward, and thank you, Chairman and Commissioners and staff of Union County. We appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon and to discuss our vision and growth strategy for the town of Waxhaw moving forward. We appreciate being here just as all the other municipalities are here, having the chance to discuss their growth strategies with you today. And what we will do is we will first talk about a little bit where we are, where we want to be, and then strategies for how to move forward. It's a very fortuitous time for us to be discussing this. We are beginning to embark on writing our new development ordinance, and really for us this is a good first step that we needed to do anyway, and making sure that our vision and growth strategy is consistent with how we want to write a new development ordinance. So my name is Jeff Wells. I've been the planning director now since this past spring, and we, as you can see, have a number of elected officials and staff that are here today supporting us, and again, we appreciate the opportunity. So first and foremost, we wanted to look at where we are, and Union County, starting as a whole. This is based on numbers from the North Carolina Office of State and Budget Management. 2015, we were at just about 220,000 people. Where we look to be at 2020 is about 242,000. And then if you see all the way up there, just about 20 years from now, the anticipated population is 338,000 within the county as a whole. So how do we fit into that? Waxhaw's demographics, and these are based off the 2018 snapshot, primarily the U.S. Census Bureau Quick Facts, as well as North Carolina's Office of State and Budget Management. But our estimated population as of 2018 was 16,181, and we would not be surprised that once the census comes and counts this next year that we will be over 20,000. Right now, that represents a population change of 63% from 2010. And other interesting percentages, we have right now an estimated population of persons under 18 at 33%, which is pretty high. That's higher than the state average as well as the county average by or percentage by a little bit. And my street here in Waxhaw is a testament to that. We have a family of 4, and we're one of the smaller families on our street of 20 houses. Persons over 65, we are a little bit under the percentage from Union County as well as North Carolina, but we all know that will be changing as we move forward, as the town has approved a few age-restricted, age-targeted communities that are currently being built or will be built, and I know there's a number of those throughout the county as well. Our median household income sits at just over $97,000, and our median housing unit is 285,200, and our mean work commute time is 33.4 minutes. What that tells us is that many people that live here in Waxhaw don't work here. They work somewhere else, most likely uptown Charlotte, Ballantyne area, as well as some other employment areas within the region. So, as we started to look at our land use and where we currently sit, this is how it's depicted in map form. We're not too terribly different from most cities and towns of our similar size. The red represents the commercial areas currently within town, and it's no surprise that is the Highway 16 commercial corridor. We're also, like a number of cities, that we have institutional uses kind of spread out throughout the town as well, churches, schools, and we also have our mixed-use area downtown, right there at Main Street and Highway 16. But what was most interesting to me is the amount of yellow on the map, the residential, and how significant that is within the town of Waxhaw. So that got me thinking, okay, well, if we have all of this residential current land use, how does that look as far as our tax base goes? And looking at some information that we have and gleaning some information from the Monroe Union County Economic Development folks, our current property tax revenue sits at 93% residential and 7% non-residential, i.e. industrial, commercial. And that is a significantly high residential percentage. It's certainly not surprising here for the percentage of growth that we've had, i.e. 63% since 2010, and the number of residential units that have been built since that time and continue to be built. For instance, we still have thousands of lots and homes that are yet to be built within the town. A lot of those still are in Millbridge, as well as some other developments that have been approved, like Belshire, Grove Manor, things that are yet to be built. So we know what that percentage is, and now we know what for residential, and of course we know that small percentage of industrial and commercial. We also know from what Monroe and Union County have told us is that commercial and industrial zoning can generate a significantly higher amount of revenue per acre versus residential. We know that we have a sizable imbalance in that property tax revenue. One equation you can look at, 5.2 homes equals 1 industrial commercial acre. So we know from that the demands of residential development are significantly higher cost to serve than industrial slash commercial acreage is. The costs never go down. The costs always go up. And typically, industrial commercial uses help to pay the bills for the cost of service better moving forward than residential does. Waxhaw, a little bit unique to a lot of other towns in the county. We're a full-service community. We have police, we have garbage, leaf pickup, recycling pickup, we have parks and recreation, we have our own building inspections department, we have planning and zoning, we have a downtown development manager, fire marshal, and other services, et cetera, et cetera. We know, you know, moving forward, that these costs never go down. They always go up. This is a picture of Lawson here on the aerial, and what we've determined is we're trying to look at the big picture here, you know, where we're looking to go down the road, and how are we going to be able to be sustainable as a town and be able to provide those services that our citizens will demand moving forward, but also do it in a way that promotes smart planning and growth principles. One thing that does happen with residential development is, as long as you're permitting, as long as those homes are building, you can be in okay shape. You can be somewhat sustainable, but eventually when that land does run out, then you run into trouble. Those demands for service keep going up, and you have no way to pick up additional revenue. The higher service cost usually equals higher tax rates, or the other choice would be a reduction in services. So one way to reverse that a little bit is to promote a little bit more of a commercial industrial balance into your tax base, and some of the benefits of that are more local jobs with the ability to an opportunity to live close to where you work, lesser commute time for residences that decreases traffic impact at your peak commuting hours, provides more local shopping and entertainment choices. That's more money spent locally by residents and visitors. Those sales tax dollars go to the state, but they do get reimbursed back to the town at a certain percentage, so that does help. And increased tax revenue for the town and county. Economic development does help pay the bills and defrays the tax burden exclusively from Waxhaw's homeowners. So, and I'll mention what type of strategies can we be thinking about to start moving in that direction. So the first thing that we did is we started looking at our current plans that we have on record, our comprehensive plan, future land use plan, looked at our parks and recreation master plan, among other documents, downtown Waxhaw vision, etc. Of course, we looked at what the county's plan is and what they had pegged for Waxhaw back just a few years ago, and looking to update. And the county had the Waxhaw area designated as a mixed residential area with obviously a downtown town center. What is also interesting is they had an employment center just east of downtown along the railway and on NC 75. Also had a designated neighborhood center just north of downtown, right at the Waxhaw Parkway intersection of 16, and then up at the intersection of Cuthbertson / Kensington Drive. So we took that information along with our existing plans, and we started focusing in on our future land use plan. And what is that telling us right now and into the future? And this is a zoomed in version of that. We cut out the area in the south, as that is virtually all restricted growth area. So we focused in on the areas a little bit more north of the plan. So first and foremost, the downtown economic zone, downtown area rather than what we will be calling a downtown economic zone. I think everybody can agree this is a top priority for the town moving forward is fostering and maintaining what we have is a very successful downtown and strategies that we can continue to maintain the momentum that we have. And me as a resident of Waxhaw, I am a frequent visitor to downtown and enjoy all that it entails. It's a really special place, and we want to make sure that we keep it that way. Another thing that we noticed on this plan is the areas that are in brown that are designated as mixed-use areas, and how can we further nurture those areas that our existing plan had targeted for additional business, retail type growth. And we think that their locations are very sound in a lot of ways, but we also feel like we could have a bit more of a nurtured vision for those mixed-use areas and what we would call a neighborhood center or neighborhood zone. The idea of these, and I'll go into this a little bit further, would be scaled down versions of the downtown areas that can create better neighborhoods and placemaking in specific strategic areas. And then lastly would be what we would call economic zones, and these would be properties that are situated near existing or future transportation corridors and rail service, and these would be larger parcels that would require minimal assembly moving forward and would provide strategic opportunities to encourage employment centers, think office parks, corporate parks, things of uses like that. So to drill down a little bit more into our vision for these, the downtown economic zone would be areas consisting of mixed-use buildings to encourage the development of retail, offices, higher density housing choices, and light manufacturing in a historic context. Our vision would be focusing on identity, intensity, and ingenuity. Downtown is the heart of Waxhaw. It encapsulates a distinct history, commerce, and community life. Its compact form and architectural detail create a setting that honors the heritage and welcomes everyday Waxhaw life. We would envision a variety of businesses, civic spaces, residences in close proximity that are essential ingredients to a vibrant downtown, and giving people the greatest number of choices and experiences in that compact single area. It would be an opportunity for creative use of existing buildings, strategic infill, high connectivity, strategically placed parking, outdoor dining, and coordinated public events. The neighborhood zones, compact areas targeted for neighborhood scale offices and businesses, community facilities, medium density housing choices, and public space in a condensed and walkable setting that's convenient to and harmonious with surrounding residential areas. And our vision for these would be destination, distance, and design. It would be an attractive and central setting for basic community services and activities, both indoor and outdoor, that would serve the surrounding neighborhoods. And distance, what we know in the planning and engineering world is that most people will only walk a distance of a quarter mile or roughly 5 minutes from their home to access those types of goods and services, so we have to keep that in mind. And we also have the vision of the prominent locations making a safe and comfortable experience for pedestrians with design elements that recall that feeling of downtown Waxhaw through building forms and signature streetscapes. And then lastly would be the economic zone, and these are areas that are intended to provide the necessary land and proper zoning to encourage the development of employment and economic opportunities for the town along future transportation routes. And the vision of these would be location, layout, and logistics, selected clusters of undeveloped and underdeveloped large parcels in town to offer strategic areas for corporate parks and employment centers. Higher intensity uses at the core of each zone would give way to less intense uses and buffers on the edges to blend with surrounding neighborhoods, and with these located along primary highways and the railway for making more efficient mobility of goods and then where heavier commercial traffic is directed away from downtown and secondary residential streets. So how all this vision looks in a final draft here is in this map, and this is our land use map that you saw earlier with these 3 zones overlaid on there. Of course, our downtown economic zone would be right there front and center, and then the neighborhood zones strategically placed. Just as a couple of thought processes for a couple of these, they're consistent with the mixed use that we have on our future land use plan, as I mentioned before, and I think they're, for the most part, in the right places. For instance, right here at Bonds Grove Church Road, that's the entry point into town, so it would be a great area to have what you would call a gateway, and something that's a scaled down version. When you drive down 16 and all of a sudden you get here, boom, you say, oh, I'm in Waxhaw. So that would be one example. Another example would be right here at Gray Byram intersection of Waxhaw Marvin Road, and all of those same things would hold true to that, but that also has another unique opportunity, being right adjacent to a future park. You would have that opportunity for walking to that town facility in the future. So those are just a couple of examples of neighborhood zones there. And then lastly, the 3 areas designated as economic zones. This area right here in the middle, it's really only 3, 4, maybe 5 parcels total for that large area, located adjacent to Highway 16 and Waxhaw Parkway. And then the area southeast, due east of town, which is consistent with what the county already has for their planning as a designated economic zone, and it has a location off of 75 and proximity to the rail if some type of business was interested in that, and also of course would have the option to go out 75 up to 521 or up Waxhaw Parkway to Highway 16 at some point in the future when that is built. And the county had also requested the town to talk about opportunities that we wish to partner with, what opportunities are out there. And this map depicts in yellow what we call donut holes within the town limits, and there are quite a number of them here, and these are defined as areas that are completely surrounded by the town but are located within the county. And the areas in green are what we call gaps in the incorporated area. These are areas that aren't necessarily surrounded by the town, but they are within the contiguous limits of the town to a great extent. And this has just happened over the years, where a property has been annexed and things has grown as they have and created these gaps. We would love the opportunity to work with the county to essentially fill in those gaps and fill in those donut holes into our vision of what our future Waxhaw would be. I don't think we have any grand visions of growing greatly outside of where we are now, but we would be interested in partnering with the county in ways and strategies that we can help to fill in those gaps that we have within our current town limits. Additional partnership opportunities that we would love to discuss with the county is we just adopted a new Parks and Recreation Strategic Master Plan earlier this year. We are also working on updating our comprehensive pedestrian plan. Hope to get some grant dollars here in the near future to move forward on that. There are a lot of great opportunities here in town with greenways and parks that we would love to partner with the county in order to see many of those come to fruition. And also transportation-wise, and this affects the county just as much as it affects the town of Waxhaw. Highway 16 widening is coming, slowly but surely, and that widening will stop at the intersection of Waxhaw Parkway, and so it's imperative that we find ways to connect the transportation network down to 75, i.e. the Waxhaw Parkway, both the northeast section, as we call it here, which is already queued up in the STIP process, and moving forward slowly but surely, but also this northwest section here, which right now is not funded through any means, but we find these two, among other transportation opportunities and situations that we have, that we would love to do some additional strategic thinking with the county on ways that we can see some of these projects come to fruition. So our next steps moving forward, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, is we're going to be embarking on the update of our development ordinance, which is why we appreciated this opportunity to come and speak with you today, because this is something that we're going to be doing anyway, as we were looking ahead to updating our ordinance and our zoning map as well. Our timeline for that, we're looking to get started full bore in the fall of this year, and hopefully we'll finish up that process in the fall of 2020. That is the goal, and that is all I have, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to present our vision and strategy with you today, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
So, suggestion that we first tackle the structure part of it and then go deep into some of the specific questions on it, okay?
Sure, absolutely.
So I'll start off structure-wise. I don't have the slides numbered. Let's see, 8, 12. The one where you have the green, where you first introduced the partnership opportunity.
Yes.
I personally think it would be very strong to bring that right up front, because it's one of the top issues. We've got a donut hole / county problem. And you don't have to call it partnership opportunity as much as this is the Waxhaw region, and highlight to them how convoluted it truly is, from donut holes to unincorporated, that really extends it. So they start to see one of the biggest issues we have in planning is that disconnect. And just throw it as an introduction, and then show here's the wackiness of the residential. Because the all yellow, it's very difficult to see the dark lines as to where the town limits are. Because I couldn't really tell that. That's one item. Second item I had, in terms of when you got to Waxhaw services, I'd call out right on top the number of services we provide. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 43 or 44. That's what makes us unique compared to all of our neighbors. Most of them have 4 to 8. We're sitting here with 43 different services that we provide. And I think the other thing to hit is when you said fire marshal, that is providing significant support to their funded Waxhaw Volunteer Fire Department, and emphasize that we're providing that partnership support already. The next slide, tax revenue versus cost to serve. You say it's not sustainable. I think we need to be bolder there. This is my personal opinion. We've already proven we can't sustain it. We did a vehicle fee increase and a 2.5-cent tax increase just a year and a half ago. We've proven that where we are today is not sustainable, so we have to make changes. We may get saved through a reval, and those are nice things that come along depending upon when that happens, but we've already proven that we have a sustainability issue that we have to continue to address. This is a personal thing to me, where before you introduce the Waxhaw plans, we've already defined through our vision planning what Waxhaw life is like in 2030, and I'll give this to you, but our plans are building to something, we're not planning for the sake of planning. And I think driving home that point is critically important to all the people there. I'll give you these, but I'll read them out because I think it's important, because this is all something this board agreed to 4 years ago and again 2 years ago, except it's now only 11 years away instead of 15 years away, and so we keep egging along. Small town character and attractive appearance, vibrant Main Street, well-planned and well-timed infrastructure, growth that pays its way, appropriate walkable community, open space, expanded quality of life opportunities, balanced tax base, community dedicated to public safety. Those bullets are really what we said we were building to, and that's been directing. I know transportation and all those kinds of things going down the path. And then I just think you ought to have a slide at the end that just summarizes. Here's all of our asks. We need help with economic development. We need a countywide transportation, comprehensive transportation. If that's what we're asking for, countywide comprehensive transportation maps. So we get out of this mode of individual political meetings to try to decide what we're going to vote on at the CRTPO, and more into what is our priorities across the county. And whatever that list is, I wrote down economic development. I wrote down, for lack of a better way to say it, congestion management, and specifically, you can get into some things there, but those were the two biggies that I wrote down. So I figured I'd start there. Do others agree with that, or have questions or thoughts on that? Candace, we'll just go left to right.
Just doing structural ones first?
Yeah, just
okay.
the structural. We'll get to the specifics on issues in a minute. But
Yeah, so I do agree that I think that the bullets that the board agreed to need to be addressed somewhere in the presentation. Additionally, I agree with putting forward the donut holes as well as the other county land space. In the 2016 comprehensive plan, one of the goals that we were looking towards was how could we achieve gaining some of those donut holes into town, and to date we've only brought in, I think it was 215 acres from the last time we looked at that. So we really haven't made significant inroads to bring everybody into the Waxhaw family, and that's something that we truly need to address.
just on that point, what was a strategy with the county for not by the county, by development for a year, get your plan approved in the county, then annex in, which creates all sorts of transportation and stormwater and all those other issues that put us at a disadvantage. And so that's where we need some help with them to make sure that, and I know Brian's doing that, but we need that pushback to say, hey, we have to have a unified thought process and approach here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Oh, no worries. Additionally, on the Waxhaw services slide, I think maybe we can do is show some of the services and then bullet out what we provide from a services perspective. If I was also looking at the benefits of commercial versus industrial, maybe we feature some of the spaces that we're looking to have become employment centers, an aerial photo or something of that nature to feature one of those areas. And then I would also kind of move up the county slide into the program and move that right at the back of the slide where we're trying to fill in our donut holes and bring Waxhaw to its full Waxhaw form. And then more so go into the slides that we have. I'm also wondering too, Jeff, instead of having all of the slides with the maps and the different circles, if there's some type of animation that we may be able to do versus having the multiple slides where we show the different circles and have them animate on the screen versus just having so many slides in the slide deck.
Yeah, and we talked about that some, and I think we probably will transition to that by next week, but we thought we'd try them with the static maps first, because sometimes the animated maps get a little squirrely when you try to put those in presentations. But
your message is solid.
Yeah.
And that's what you tested.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I'll reserve the rest of my questions for when we get to questions. Thanks.
No, my questions are mostly content.
I thought it was a great presentation. I was going to say the same thing about somehow overlaying the different maps, because I was a little bit confused. Like twice you had the land use study map, once at the beginning and once at the end, and then all the more detailed ones in between, and so I was a little bit confused with that. But just it's easier to read when it's more overlaid, and I think even that confusion is kind of how in recent rezoning requests we've had has been confusing for the board, just because there's been so many different maps out there. So I think just condensing them a little bit, and then and I agree. I loved the map showing the donut holes and things. That's like a big one, needs to be right out there in front. So that's awesome.
One quick thought, Jeff, since they both brought up the color part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just call Brian, if you wouldn't mind, and find out if any of the Board of Commissioners are colorblind. Because
That's a
they
good
won't
suggestion.
understand the chart. I mean, that's just a safeguard there, and we want them to understand it. I just happen to think of that. They might not be able to understand the chart if they have a color deficiency. So,
It's a great,
The other thing I may add at the end of the presentation is really just like a quick snapshot of Waxhaw life. You know, what's our mission, vision, and values, and what does it mean, you know, to be a resident of Waxhaw? Just a quick little blurb.
you know, what you could do is show the video.
That's
You know, end it with the video that we've
Right.
created. This is where we are and where we're going.
how
Put it
long
up in
is
a
the
big
video?
po-
Do you
huh?
know? Do you know how long the video
It's
is?
about a minute.
Oh,
that.
okay.
And who knows, we might get 5 smiles. So, I can hope. Commissioner Burns.
I agree with the video, and also on some of the maps, a more defined boundary would be suggested. But most of mine are content.
Okay.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, real good job. This is.
Thank you.
So now, since we went to structure, how about content? We'll go this way this time. Okay, Commissioner Burns on content.
Okay, and here we go. The growth strategy for me with this entire presentation, I understand the Highway 16 as a commercial area. I think that to me, in my vision or the vision that people have talked to, it is Highway 16. I don't agree when we go to the maps where you have all the little circles, which you call those economic centers or employment centers within the neighborhoods. I do agree with one, which would be out Highway 75. The other ones I don't agree with, to place those economic centers within the context of smaller developments throughout town. I think it would take away from downtown and the businesses that are there. I believe that everything that we have planned, and even over the 28 years that I've lived here, it's always the focus of economic development downtown, to draw people downtown. And actually, that's what has drawn so many people here, is the small feel, the downtown historic area and that street. And to divide that into 6 or 7 different areas, that will pretty much cause people to not come downtown. If they have a little corner shopping center with a coffee shop or a hamburger place or a deli, they're not going to come downtown. I don't know what the effects of that would be on those businesses. The higher density in one of your slides, I don't know which. Anyway, on the higher density, where are you talking about really high density, such as the apartments that are downtown? Is that what you're thinking, that should be placed in different areas in town with the donut holes if they come in, for example, the Howie property, or Lennar Howie property, whoever owns it now. That's going to be requested to be annexed in. So I don't know what the developer will ask to zone that property. Is that what you're talking about? Large donut holes that will annex in that could be very high density?
Well, that particular location being adjacent to downtown, our vision for the downtown area would have the highest density, yes. The vision for the neighborhood zones would be, as I mentioned, a scaled down version of the downtown, not the same amount of density. For instance, as you mentioned, coffee shops, bakeries, dance studios, things like that would serve the immediate neighborhood. Each individual area, it really depends on the parcels that are there as to what size they would be. For instance, the Bonds Grove Church intersection, you have maybe 5 or 6 acres that are in the town limits right now. So that would be the scale of that one, at least at this moment. On the contrary to that, the Gray Byram intersection there, as to what's in the Waxhaw town limits, is, I don't know the exact size of that, but it's probably 15, maybe 20 acres of parcel that is within the town limits. So that would be the scale of that one. As far as residential in those, we would call those medium density type areas. My thought would be townhouses, things of that sort. I don't envision multifamily as much in those areas. I would envision multifamily to be in the downtown area. And that would be where you have the mix of uses, the housing options, whether they're single family, residential, multifamily, or single family attached. Provide that housing choice that you see in many downtown areas. And the Howie parcel is right there within that. It is a sizable piece of land. It's over 100 acres. So staff's thought with that moving forward is that would be a rather large parcel, particularly in the downtown area, to have one zoning district. So we're thinking about what the options and opportunities would be there is to split the zoning. The thought of having different areas for your commercial development and mix of uses of residential, office. The property is so sizable you can have a little bit of everything on that property, and we would see that really as an extension of downtown. And we do not know yet what Lennar's plans are with that, but I think we all are going to find out about that very soon. And the economic zones, the 3 gray circles, they would be...
That piece of property comes with zoning from the county that's pretty high density, correct?
The county zoning there it allows for half-acre lots. It is so the 20,000 square foot lots. They can do single-family detached or duplexes there. Those are the primary uses allowed under the current zoning that the county has. Now, the thought for the gray circles and the economic zones is those would be exclusive to employment centers. You would have no other uses allowed there except for employment generators, corporate parks, office parks, high-tech type of industrial, for instance. That would be specific to areas that are large parcels that, as I said before, would have a bit easier time assembling land. You try to put that stuff in areas where you have a bunch of small parcels and it gets virtually impossible to assemble something to be those type of uses. They also have to have locations that make sense along transportation corridors. It just so happens that we have the fortunate opportunity to have areas of large parcels that do have the ability to be connected to a future transportation network, and so that's why those are there in that fashion. And one thing to also stress is these areas are where, and I mentioned before, we're looking at the big picture and then ways that we can try to grow smartly moving forward. And we feel like these circle areas are the best ways to encourage that. You know, we're not saying that we're discouraging development everywhere else, because we're not, but we would encourage the growth to happen within these different circle areas. Focus on the downtown, focus on economic development of the downtown, as well as the employment centers, as well as having some walkable small neighborhood centers that serve the community. But you know, that's obviously staff's first stab at it. There's a long way to go until we get to implementation of it, you know, with the target being the fall of 2020. And this is the board's vision. This is the board's plan. You know, I'm here to put that together how you see fit. So, you know, this is very fluid. You know, those circles can move. They can be one place. They can be another. They can be gone. It's however you feel about that moving forward. So, I do want to stress that, you know, that we have the overall vision here, but this doesn't necessarily mean the final location of everything. And then we also have to write the standards as well that would be implementing this vision. And I know there are some concerns about specifically the neighborhood zones, as you said. And if they continue to stay on the map in that fashion, I think ways to address that would be the types of uses that would be allowed there. You don't necessarily have to have every use in the book allowed there. You can restrict those to a number of extents that you would like to, quite frankly. Now you won't have the means moving forward as we have for a number of years, i.e. conditional use zoning, but one tool that you will have that would control use would be what's called the special use permit. And so you can have in your table of permitted uses in any specific zones, you would have the uses that are permitted by right, or you can put an S on them that stands for SUP, and then those type of uses would come before the board if they wanted to locate, and not just there, but anywhere, any uses that you deemed would need some additional review by the board above and beyond a permitted use by right. Those would still come to the board for consideration, like you do a lot of the other types of uses that come through. It would be a quasi-judicial type specific for that use. You would have the underlying zoning district that would still be there, but then you would pick uses that you would deem to be worthy of additional review at the board level and have your ability to approve those as you wish. And overlaying that, though, I would hope, you know, our goal is we want to write an ordinance that the board trusts and really believes in. You know, that's the goal. We want to have we want to be restrictive to a certain extent, but we also want to create standards that are fair and reasonable as well. And there are a lot of opportunities out there for different ways that you can control the growth. And of course, it starts with just having good standards that you can trust and you can believe in, and that those can go a long way. But there are also other safeguards within these areas for uses that you would be concerned with. So I don't want you to think that that there aren't ways to control that in any of these areas, because you would be able to control uses that you would have concerns about within any specific areas.
I have another question. On your downtown economic zone, on the map, it really isn't defined where exactly that circle, what it encompasses. Do you have some boundaries or some landmark types of where you think that downtown area should expand to within that circle, going out from downtown now, the center of town?
We haven't drilled down that far yet, as this is the vision for it, but our plan would be as we move forward to the development ordinance writing phase, I guess you could say, of this, is that one thing that I would like to do within our ordinance is have a defined area of where that is. So that's the plan. That is something that we are missing now in our current ordinance, and I think that would be a good thing to have as to what that boundary is, what we envision that to be with a new ordinance. Of course, like any plan and any ordinance, you have to revisit that regularly to make sure that is still where you want that to be, but that is the plan.
So within that area, your thinking is that would be the higher density in what you've said on the map here, high-density housing choices, which would be apartment complexes within that boundary, within the downtown economic zone.
That would be
Similar to what we have going on now, and rather than your corporate parks, centers, of course, there's not enough room there for that, so we're kind of zeroing in on retail high density for that circle downtown, wherever we determine the borders would be.
Well, we're really looking at all uses there, quite honestly. I mean, it would be offices, it would be retail opportunities, and it would be residential choices. We're not looking at any exclusivity there as we would in the economic zone, where we're looking at exclusively employment centers. I think the key to downtown would be providing those different options, and having those choices available to people within what I think most people would consider to be the central area of town, trying to encourage those within that area and the other circles, i.e. discouraging, for example, the opportunity for apartments to pop up along the corridor. If you have a good plan and pre-zone for those areas that you would like to see these type of uses, and you stick to that, I think that can go a long way, and that can benefit the community. It can benefit the development community. They know what the vision of the board is. They know where they can do certain uses. They know where they can't do certain uses, and that works pretty well for the most part. And it is a way to discourage sprawled type growth that just grows up and down the corridor. You're keeping your growth condensed within specific areas. And again, not to say that we're completely discouraging it in every other area, but we're trying to encourage growth within those strategic areas. And again, that's not necessarily the end all to be all is where do they have to be, but this is our stab at looking at where it makes sense.
So let me interject here, because I think this is where, as a board, I won't speak for everybody, but I've seen enough of the confusion over the last week. The downtown vision plan had a specific boundary. They had it captured. It didn't get put in the code. We have a meeting coming up on September 19th that is redoing the vision, but we haven't defined key principles, the area, community priority. It might drive community priorities. So we're trying to put all of this stuff together as to how's this stuff really going to take hold. I get the circle. That's just a 100,000 foot, and we're going to start zooming in. But maybe this is where we, maybe later, but I think we have to get down to the stepping stones to it. If all of a sudden we're going to have a vision come September, or whatever the date is on this, September 19th, we're moving at a speed that was much faster than what a downtown vision plan has taken in the past. And it is moving in less than a month to a place that we're not sure how it all comes together, quite honestly. So I don't know how you and Kurt and Erskine want to handle this right now, or if you want to table it until the end, that's fine. But I think that's, for me, listening to Commissioner Burns and listening to some of the other board members this week, reading the announcement, seeing the WBA go out and announce and say, hey, everybody's welcome, you just have to register. All of a sudden, we're in the middle of a land use approach that we're basically going to solve the vision for downtown in a half a day. It's confusing. I'll just leave it at that. Is that fair? I mean, Kyle?
Yeah,
Somebody-
I will end with just a few comments and then go to. I agree with infrastructure. We have an issue with economic development and light industrial. I agree with that. I agree with we need to focus on the 93% per 7%. However, when I look at the entire map, I kind of see something that is similar to sprawl. And I don't know that that's something that on this map and these plans is something that I completely agree with. And we each are going to have our own opinions. So that's why we're here, to get everybody's opinion. But thank you for your work. This is very good work, and I know you worked hard on it, and thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Westlake?
Okay. I'll have to say that the vision you laid out is actually kind of more my thinking on and how I see us handling the growth here. I mean, growth is coming, and I think this fits very well with what's currently known as a smart growth strategy. I actually do support the neighborhood centers. As you've pointed out, the unbalanced tax rate, that we can't just focus on a downtown economic area, that we have to have different ones spread out throughout the town. And with that, it promotes walkability, cutting down on the transportation. It creates community, all the things that are part of our goals. And as long as each of these neighborhood centers maintains that same architectural structure as our downtown area with with brick and just kind of more of a historical look, that it all will fit together well. I would like to see us in some way maintain just mixed use instead of doing large apartment complexes. I think that's been pretty much a consensus with, I would say, what we hear throughout the town, that we don't want to turn into one of these cities with a bunch of large apartment complexes. So maintaining a mixed use can fit in with kind of the historic look while adding, balancing out the commercial and the high density residential. Let's see if there's anything else. And I just think that I would like to see Waxhaw be unique and be the model in the region or even in the state by focusing on this more of a smart growth type of planning rather than turning into the sprawl that we see in so many areas outside of the large cities. So I do support this vision.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, thank you for your presentation. I think that what you've done is an excellent start in moving forward, and it's a better, I won't say better plan, but it's a good start from where we've been to now looking at where we are and hopefully where we will be in the future in planning something out. It is tying together both Waxhaw's vision and also what the county has stated in their plans and putting that together. I agree with Mayor's statement that we need to put up front more the holes to the county to show them how Waxhaw needs to be more involved in that, in helping Waxhaw build its vision and moving forward. Have we reached out, because you talked about Bonds Grove. Now, Bonds Grove is really right at the beginning of coming into almost Waxhaw, and that's also Marvin on the other side. Have we reached out, or is there any intention to reaching out with other municipalities, i.e. Marvin, to see what is going on right at that corner? Because I understand, or I've heard, that they are planning a development center right there as well, so.
Yes, the answer to your question is yes, as we have been in contact with their planner, and we would certainly be open and would love to collaborate more with our neighboring communities. We have hesitated to do that yet because we wanted to make sure that the vision that we have is supported, by the board before we went out on any limbs, I guess you could say. But as far as Marvin specifically, we did contact their planner. Well, he contacted us because of that development that you specifically mentioned, and a few of us went and attended the neighborhood meeting for that development. So we were there for a little while as part of that. So we have gotten to see those plans, and so we followed up with that with the staff planner there at a lunch a couple of days later, and shared our ideas here as what we were thinking about, and he was supportive of that. But then we just told him, stay tuned, and we'll continue to coordinate after we refine and work on this with our board moving forward. But I would love to do that. The more cooperation and the more interaction between neighbors is better.
And there's been a lot of talk here about the neighborhood centers and the placement of them. Now, from what I saw on the map, or what I was looking at, they are pretty much along the 16 corridor. So in being able to put in maybe special uses with the vision of whatever is moving forward with Waxhaw and that corridor, that would also then bring more economic revenue within the town, and keeping forth the vision and stuff within the town to help drive down the ratio of the 93-7, but not taking away from, if my understanding is correct, what's going on downtown, but just to encompass and assist with neighborhoods and maybe moving people out to the centers and then having them come more into downtown to, more things that are going on.
That's correct. The vision for that would not be to take the place of what's going on downtown. I don't think. It would be to just provide some basic opportunities for people to be able to have basic services within close proximity to them. And of course, the scale of these is I just don't see how it would be possible for a neighborhood center to provide everything that a person or people would need to go about their daily quality of life. But it would just be one key opportunity that people would have to be able to have some things close to them that they could utilize for their goods and services.
I think you've done a very good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have done a good job. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So a couple of specific questions because it's on content. I'll start kind of with the end in mind, and I went back to your project plan. I think that's something that has to happen before we get to the fall and starting to write code is some form of risk assessment. All that gray area, we can ask for that to be a part of the town, but that does not fix necessarily the imbalance in residential versus commercial. And so I think it would be nice for the board before we start and the following board starts to look at uses and what we can do and where does Chris Platte and Union County Economic Development fit in. What will, given our existing, and we all understand the state has said no more, taking somebody and put it in your town. I mean, they have to voluntarily come in and there's all sorts of rules. But just putting those circles there, what will the 93.7 become? Will it be 92.8, and are we really moving the ball forward or very just incrementally? Or is there some analysis that then can guide the board that, hey, if you do this, you can get to 90.10, or if you do this, 85.15, or if you do this, you're only going to get, at best case, an increase in a percentage point. Because otherwise, we're going way down into the uses, and we're not bringing it back up to what are we trying to accomplish here. And I think what we're trying to accomplish is that balance, or cutting services. So I think that kind of analytical data coming back would help, because then it also starts to impact what Matt does on the transportation side. If we're going to 85.15 and suddenly people are not making the trips, that has a different impact as we look at some of these transportation solutions. So I think that piece is important, and I would encourage you or ask that you maybe consider that as another item that we're looking at to feed the plan that we're going to build in the fall. That's the biggie that I got out of there, because I'm still concerned. I actually think we've already hit the not sustainable. That's what the tax increase in the vehicle fee was last year. What we have is not sustainable. So we have to do something about it. And I don't have any problem saying that in a public forum with the mic on either. That's where we are. So, Commissioner Lee. By the way, we'll come back to, we'll take the downtown vision, economic vision session separately at the end, okay?
I echo everyone in saying that you did a really great job on this presentation. I really loved your plans for the economic zones, talking about business parks, medical parks, things that can blend into the environment, that are unobtrusive but provide high-quality jobs for our residents. I think that's extremely important. I like your plans for downtown. I do have problems with the neighborhood zones. Not so much the two on either end of 75 where the Parkway will one day go, because when the Parkway comes, those areas are going to grow. But when you look at the other neighborhood zones, these are mostly on single-family residential areas, and what you have is people who chose not to live in downtown in mixed use. They chose, for that matter, they chose not to live in Ballantyne, Blakeney, or Stonecrest. They chose to live in a smaller, single-family home, mostly neighborhoods area. And I worry that shoehorning this kind of economic development on top of them is going to damage their quality of life. It's going to upset them, it's going to not give them the life that they moved here to get. So I really don't support those other neighborhood circles, but I am very happy with, as I said, especially the economic zones. I would very much like to see business parks come into our town and see some good high-quality jobs come here. That's it.
Hey Jeff, I have questions and then I'm going to go to comments. So how many planned neighborhoods do we currently have as age-targeted communities slated for Waxhaw?
Ooh, let's see. We have Main Street Station is coming along. That's the development that is coming out of the ground on the east side of town. 75. Grove Manor, I believe, is an age-restricted community. I might need some help from other staff here, but those are the two that directly come to mind. I don't think there's any others.
There's on Waxhaw Marvin, there's
Yeah,
one on
Belshire.
Elms Road, there's one on,
That's Belshire. Yep, that's right, Belshire too. Thank you. Those are the three, and I can tell you too that it is very common to get inquiry calls for parcels and asking, well, what do you think about an age-targeted community at X location or Y location? Those happen regularly. So we very much recognize that that's going to continue to be the case here, and really I am part of that here because I moved here to Waxhaw, and what did my family say after I moved here? Is they said, okay, well, we'll be there within a year or two. We'll see you down here. So that kind of thing. So my dad, who's goes between Florida and New York now, is thinking about one of those opportunities, either here in Waxhaw or nearby, as well as my father-in-law that it's in the mountains now.
So with the three that we have planned, how does that help us come to the percentage where we were below the percentage from a county perspective? Does that help us kind of close the gap, or will we need to look for other options to help us close that gap so that we can meet the county's request, essentially, to provide age-targeted communities?
My personal opinion is I don't think we're going to have to do anything. That's just going to happen on its own, and I wouldn't be surprised at the way things are going that percentage is going to go up.
Okay, so we're going to see a natural increase of that based just on the fact that those communities are going to look to come and co-locate here.
Yes, for various reasons, this is an attractive area for that, and I think that will continue to be the case.
Well, my in-laws live 2 blocks from us, so, they came very quickly
Yeah.
to enjoy Waxhaw with us. So additionally, in one of the first slides, we talked about a mean worked commute time. How do we come up with that calculation? That's essentially my commute to Ballantyne when school's in session. So I don't think everybody is as blessed as I am to only have to commute to Ballantyne. I think a lot of people are commuting downtown and into uptown and even further. So how do we come up with that mean work commute time?
Town staff did not come up with that number. We drew that number from other sources. In this case, it's the U.S. Census Bureau Quick Facts. It's the estimations that they put out on a regular basis, and their most recent one is 2018. I think they do it every other year. Now, the most refined look at that will be when the census data, the official census data, comes out in 2020. That's just estimates based on a number of surveys that go out, and they try to draw information for people. That number, if I had to guess, will probably be slightly higher when the 2020 census data comes out. How much more, I don't know. Probably not a lot more, but it probably will be higher.
I think the thing to keep in mind there is it encompasses travel everywhere. So it includes the percentage that travels within Union County to a job. Ballantyne, Charlotte. I think the closest we came to what you're asking is when Commissioner Lee and I attended the South Charlotte transportation, and they looked specifically at the commute going into Charlotte and into Ballantyne, and the average commute time was 38 minutes or 36 to 38 minutes. I mean, significantly more than that, but that took them doing some study. You only have access to what you have access to.
Yeah,
But,
the mayor's correct. I mean, that's accounting for anybody that's driving to Monroe, for instance, for work, or that may be going to South Carolina as well, Rock Hill.
Steve, when we attended that, didn't they say we were the #1 producer of outbound?
Yes, we are.
Traffic in
That's the
Union
key.
County.
We're the #1 producer of outbound traffic.
That's not surprising at all.
True. You know,
Thank you for that clarification. So with us looking to move forward with Prescott as well as South Providence commercial areas that were presented at the last meeting, does that gain us any percentage from the 7? Does that increase us up any to help us balance a little bit more, since we're looking to see Prescott be activated and looking to see that additional commercial space for South Providence be put into play? Does that give us any percentage points between the 93 and the 7?
I would think it would, yeah. I mean, they're two sizable developments. I mean, they will be done parcel by parcel. I mean, I can't really tell you what that percentage would be, but every development like that would definitely make an impact on the percentages. What would make the largest impact would be the employment centers, but the retail would certainly have an impact as well.
Okay.
I think the other thing is that gets balanced against all the housing that is planned. You got a couple of more phases in Millbridge. You mentioned the age appropriate. Those are all housing coming on, so we're kind of in that. We're finally getting something that maybe instead of going to 94.6, we'll either 93.7, 92.8 kind of thing, which is encouraging.
So I do support the economic centers. I travel 5 days a week to my office, have done so for 10 years. I've had to drive into North Charlotte. I've had to drive into Uptown Charlotte. I'm now blessed to only have to drive to Ballantyne. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity for people who want to live, work, and play in Waxhaw to do that. So I am in support of those economic centers and would really like to have an understanding. Are we looking to say for those economic centers, are we looking to put a zoning district on those within our UDO to say we want them to be office, institutional, and economic employment centers, so that those are going to be used solely for that purpose?
Yes, that is the idea. It would be an exclusive district in those areas specifically for that type of development. The uses allowed there would be high-tech industrial, corporate type office parks, things of that sort. Not residential, not single-family detached, not multifamily, not retail per se, as in the sense of gas stations or anything of that sort. So strictly employment centers, corporate parks, industrial, high-tech industrial.
Okay, so if we look at Ballantyne, for example, and the corporate park that they have established, they have some really strict architectural guidelines in play. Would we want to, and this is really for my team here and my teammates, would we want to have something where we have architectural guidelines in place that are kind of cohesive with what our downtown and our historic strategy is for Waxhaw? If we're looking to pass those to the neighborhood centers, will we not also want to pass those to the employment centers?
I would think so.
Okay.
I don't think we can answer that question right now. I think what staff has to do is kind of bring us back some options and what the impact of things are. We might be getting ahead of ourselves, and obviously we want to look and feel for Waxhaw, but you can get ahead of yourself and put significant restrictions in place such that you restrict anybody looking at this. So I think we look with an eye towards that, absolutely, but I also think you guys as subject matter experts need to bring back, here's the risk with various implementations. We have a history in Waxhaw down where Stax is, et cetera. We had a long argument about that, and now here's where we are is where we are with something that was designed to be something dramatically different. It got into an architectural argument, and now it's something that a lot of people wish we didn't have, that kind of apartment complex, and still a struggle as to what to put into where old Stax was. And I don't mean that as a other than as a marker, not anything against Stacks at all. They were renting the place. It's one of the great breakfast places around, so I want to make sure everybody understands that one. So,
So I guess my final comment would be, I would really like to have a better understanding of what the zoning districts would be that overlay onto the downtown economic zone as well as the neighborhood zone. For me, it would make more sense to have an understanding of what we're targeting or what we're suggesting to target. I have, some issues with some of the circles. I agree with the circles on the opposite ends of 75. I don't understand how we would be able to do some of them on 16 because they're already highly built out. That area already has designated property on it. So I don't know how we would further build on top of what's already there. So I have some concerns with that.
okay, thank you. Just one last quick comment. Again, this is probably going to be mad at me for another change to the project plan, but have you given any thought, you've got this out here, it's high level, but a public input session on the high level view so people not can judge but weigh in with, hey, I'd like this, but I don't want that in a neighborhood center, or what are you thinking of, et cetera, just to get some public input, because right now we're making this based upon judgments we have with anecdotal information. And I think what you've heard is everybody in concept, it seems to make sense, but we have some concerns in different areas. And we all have them. I just think some form of initial public input might help us. And again, I understand the challenges with doing something like that, but at least I'm struck by what NCDOT did to try to get people to talk about the Highway 16 project. There were some things in there that flat out people just do not like, but they got people to come in and not say yay or nay, but would you tell us what your concern is? So we have answers to it, and if we don't have an answer, then, hey, maybe we overlooked something. Just a thought.
We're certainly open to that, and we can move in that direction. Happy
Okay.
to do that.
Okay. I just think it would help us, as you said, how do we make these decisions? So you had another additional comment?
I think that's where the message isn't clear for me, because I'm hearing some commissioners not liking neighborhood centers or specific neighborhood centers. Others of us, I think, are saying we do. And so we're not really defining which ones, or, I'm assuming that the ones that a few don't like are the ones that are out, looks like on Waxhaw Marvin Road. It's the name
No.
of the roads
So
are on the map here. But
So
I don't think anybody's saying like or dislike. I hear concerns. I hear concerns around the definition of downtown. I hear pretty much general consensus around the ones on 75. I hear requests for more definition around the ones up north, given the mix of housing that's up there, given that we're going to be touching other municipalities. And so I think it's questions, not like or dislike. Just to kind of clarify. And so thus the need for, I think the suggestion was by the Mayor Pro Tem, maybe we talk with Marvin and see what their appetite is. Maybe we do a public session, that kind of stuff, to get some input so we can figure out what the optimum is around it.
But are we keeping these circles of neighborhood centers on this map as it is presented, or are we now saying we want to wait?
This is not a decision-making. This is where we are in the evolution, the beginning of the building of a plan. We don't have enough information to take something off yet or put something else on.
Yeah, my question essentially was, with these circles, right,
Yeah.
what are they going to contain? Is it mixed use? Is it commercial? I want to understand, what do these neighborhood centers mean from a zoning district perspective? What would the zoning district overlay be for these neighborhood centers. I particularly am concerned with the ones on 16 between downtown and Providence Road, because those are already areas that already have buildings on them. So we're saying that we're looking at those and we're going to designate them differently than what they already are today.
I think the suggestion then, in moving forward by the mayor to have the community input would be helpful for the board as a whole, because now we're looking at certain areas and pinpointing certain circles. But once you get that community input, the community may be agreeable to having those centers there. They can also have input as to what they would like to see in a potential center there. So then that can clarify how that center can be zoned, how it's going to be used. In addition, you said that we can put special uses on there to say that only these areas or these particular centers can have this particular use, that it comes back then to the board, and that all encompasses everybody's opinions, suggestions, and zoning moving forward for clarity.
I
So that's
agree.
all it needs.
I
It's just
agree. I
necessary
would like to see
clarification.
this, have that public session.
Yeah, it's important to have the public comment and their opinions as part of this.
Absolutely.
There you go. You got the smile back. There you go. Okay. Any other comments? Before we bring Kurt up, do you want to take us through the survey and kind of, what we're talking about?
Yes, I do, and I guess,
We can have one town response?
and one thing, just to wrap up, I've written all these notes down, and hopefully I've taken and absorbed everything that has been said to me. My goal will be is to try to adjust these slides accordingly and have that done by Friday, because the county is asking for a copy of the presentation on Monday. So that will be my goal.
Mayor, are you going to have any input in that session? I know there was some discussion from the,
Yeah, let me go back. The chairman asked that I either kick off or sum up what's the ask of the county, and I'm happy to do that. Jeff, if you want to consolidate the ask of the county, I'll be happy to do that at the end.
Okay,
Okay?
I'll do that.
And we can kind of rehearse that, if that's okay. I'm assuming he's made the same request of each town that.
As far as the survey, there's
Melody
several
gave each
questions.
one of us a copy of the survey.
Question number one, after identifying what community we are, is what is the most pressing issue in your community? Some examples might be congestion, economic development, safety, or affordability.
Certainly congestion and economic development are right there. I don't know if we want to include this, but certainly we're at a point where I won't call it affordability, but diversity in housing options. Are we at the limit, or do we want more? But it's an issue that constantly gets talked about. And with that, do we want to maintain and enhance what we have to maintain? Because we do have a pretty. It goes into the darn formula for affordability. If everything becomes a high-priced house, you suddenly have more to cover. If we have an affordable mix, the cost to serve extrapolates across the different ranges. And so at one point in time, we were looking at that. But we don't have to put that one on, but I think affordability from the standpoint of affording our services is kind of getting at it in a different way.
Okay. The second question is, what is the vision for your community, and what would your community look like when it's done growing?
So we have a defined vision, mission statement, and this is what it looks like, what I read before. If we want to use what we have and just go from there. I'll just give you these and make it easy for you. That's what we communicate consistently to the chamber, to the institutions, South Piedmont, Wingate, et cetera.
Great.
Doesn't mean that we don't have to improve upon it over time, but
Is your community planning and budgeting for projects to mitigate growth impacts? And then it is asking to select all that apply. Parks or other community facilities, road expansions or upgrades, water or sewer projects, police or fire departments, and trash collection. And I think we can obviously check 4 of those 5 boxes. Not water and sewer, but parks, yes. Road expansions, yes. Police or fire, yes. And trash collection, yes.
yeah, I'd just put in there and make sure they understand that these are services that we've been providing for a number of years. Contrast that with something like trash collection. Everybody that surrounds it, they don't provide it. So just again, reiterate the point that we provide these things.
Does your community want more or less density from future development? Your 3 choices are greater density, less density, or current level of density.
Well, my opinion is less, but that's just me.
I would say that that's my opinion as well. I
Mine
mean,
as
if
well.
you look at the percentage, how can we consume more and more and more?
I would agree with that.
And I'd put the caveat, it's maybe less density except where the location, i.e. downtown, requires a little, less density is a little bit vague. It's a struggle I'm having with the question, because if you look at different areas in the town, less density is different across the town. And so we have to acknowledge that.
I think you can have concentrated areas like
Yeah.
we're talking about, but still have overall less
I
density.
think that's the blend that,
Yeah.
less density except in economic zones or whatever you want to call them.
Maybe you put that, I don't know if they're allowing for comments, but I think you have to clarify that, because that,
We
Could
could
be
put that
misleading.
at the end with the other,
yeah, okay.
if we need to.
Is the next one on as many as you want? Or is that you got to pick one?
I don't know how it's in the computer, but the question is, does your community want more employment and retail development? Employment could include commercial and industrial uses. The answers are yes, more employment and retail. Yes, more retail only. Yes, more commercial. I assume they mean industrial only. Or no more employment or retail development wanted.
Number 1?
Number 1.
Yeah, I think we all agree to the economic zones.
Is your community prepared for aging-related housing demands? Union County's population is aging. This trend is affecting the type of residential development being proposed, including age-targeted or restricted neighborhoods, as well as independent and assisted living facilities. The answers would be yes, we welcome these different housing types, no, but recognize it is an emerging issue to address, or no, we don't want these development types.
Yes, we already have these development types.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Next, is your community taking steps to protect farmland? If so, please explain steps being taken.
I don't think we're doing that.
Does not apply.
How can you protect it? It's property rights, right?
Okay, in A, does the community have stormwater, floodplain, environmental concerns? Please select all that apply. Flooding damage, loss of habitat, safety concerns, or other concerns?
Well, I think we need to drive the message, and I think we're one of the few we have a stormwater plan, and we've staff has, I guess the point is, over the last 3 years, staff has been working hard to put some of these things that were never in place. Through Dennis, Matt, Warren, you, et cetera, it's just an evolution. And so we have things in place. We need to improve upon them always, but, and so we do have, we know we can get some flooding damage. Not sure we have anything we don't allow anything to be built in the floodplain, so we're not as concerned about loss of habitat. Always have safety concerns. I would say from another concern standpoint, just our infrastructure for stormwater, given that we're such an old town, is challenging. Those are the things that would just flow off the top of my head.
Can I say, Steve, this says stormwater or floodplain or environmental is how I read it. So we do have, I would say, loss of habitat concerns. We do want to make sure we're conserving some of our land for natural resource, for natural habitat. I would say we should check that box as well.
I agree. Our green space is disappearing, and when we do look at this overall map, it is disappearing even faster, even though property rights do come into play here as far as development. But what we do have and what our master parks and plan has given us of what we need to acquire, we need to look at all of that. So habitat is an issue.
So when they speak to safety concerns, is that safety concerns associated to the environment?
I don't know that anybody here can will necessarily understand how Bjorn put this together and what he meant. But how I read that, given that statement at the top, generally are outside of an abnormal event, do we have safety concerns with our current system and structure? And my concern that I raise is, if we're looking at the entire town, our stormwater infrastructure on the other side of the tracks is pretty weak, or needs improvement, or whatever you want to call it. It's just because of the age of the town. We don't have curb and gutter and all that stuff. We have erosion and things like that. Staff's working it, but it's just, that's the older part of town that the infrastructure hasn't kept current. And I mention it because however we attack that, I'm just making north and south. I'm not making east and west. I'm just going, if you go south, we have challenges that will cost a significant amount of dollars. The other side of that is, as we implement those rules in the new subdivisions, I don't think most of the HOAs understand their exposure to stormwater maintenance and infrastructure that they have in their common areas as we go forward, as those things crumble and break as well. So safety concerns, yeah, I mean, the HOA, I can tell you firsthand, we had flooding in Prescott, and that was all because the HOA didn't, with the last hurricane, because the HOA didn't know it was their responsibility to clean some things out, and so they had to step up to the plate. Again, a lot of these subdivisions were built, passed on, and without clear lines, because none of this stuff was in place. And this is why you go by Matt's office and you see stacks of papers trying to manage all this stuff. It's just a lot of stuff to get under control.
So check all boxes.
Yeah.
And then last is, if you selected other concerns, please provide more detail below, and I can certainly use that to elaborate on some of these other boxes, I guess, that don't allow you to comment. Yeah, like the less density overall, but allowing them in strategic areas within town, et cetera, et cetera.
I would add one, just to put it out there. This is just from my experiences. It's a well-documented and affordable county and regional transportation plan. I think we dance a little bit there. We try to solve it through meetings, and the county really has a limited role when it comes to roads. And so how do you really build something, get each of the municipalities to pay to play, and then build this and get the right state resources? we can't do that alone. I'm concerned we're at the end of it. We're a dead end. We dead end the state and we dead end 16. And there's no incentive for anybody else to fix this other than us. And yet, we're a part of the county, and we need to elevate that, continue to elevate that issue. Especially since we saw all the news with DOT last week. Money, map back, layoffs, all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, I digress.
All right, well, I will fill this out
Give you
and,
these afterwards.
great, and get this to the county.
Yeah. Kurt, because we know you're going to be quick, but we still would like a 5-minute bio break just before you start, okay? Anything, at least not yet.
Yeah, listen, not until you understand what it is.
All right, we're back, ready, raring to go. So, what are you trying to do with this session? We'll just cut to the chase.
Okay, so just to try to help clarify here, one of the requirements as a Main Street program, as a designated Main Street community, is that we have to have an annual work plan, but that we also have to have, they call it, the term they use is a strategic plan. What they mean by that is that in addition to just knowing what we're going to do each year, they want you to establish some sort of 5-year type of outlook that you continually renew, and that you use your annual work plans to implement that strategic plan / vision document. They use different language than we might use here, so I'm just trying to translate. But we have been doing our annual work plans, as you know, each year. The Main Street Advisory Board kind of puts it together with my help, and then this board reviews and approves it or makes modifications. It has been a little while now since we have had that first piece of it, though, the broader vision that is going to guide downtown over the next several years. In 2012, as you know, we had a downtown vision plan, which was really, that was before we were a Main Street community. We were a small town, but that's a different set of criteria to go with that. But we were not a Main Street community then, so that was really more of a small area plan with recommendations about zoning. In fact, it recommended an update of the entire zoning ordinance, which then happened. It put into place recommendations for specific parcels in the downtown, similar to what our ULI study did. It really was a full-on area plan, much more of a land use plan that is then administered and kind of worked with by the planning department. This is not that.
In a broad area, too. I mean,
Right.
it was,
And a much broader area than just what we call downtown or what the Main Street boundary is today. This is not that. This is simply it is North Carolina Main Street staff coming down to facilitate a evening and then a morning session. The work plan that was approved in July showed that the Main Street Board was going to request professional facilitation to help develop a vision and an implementation plan. That professional facilitation, those facilitators are recommending a certain format that we use. And it is, they come the evening of September the 19th at, I believe it's from about 6 to 9 o'clock. And they will invite key stakeholders to come and identify downtown's key assets, key challenges, and then key goals for the future. Those invitees will be really focused on primarily on downtown property and business owners, which I've directly been interfacing with. There's a limited amount of space. I will then, I know the mayor mentioned it's been sent out all over the place. I guess it's gotten some legs, but I will be kind of the gatekeeper there because the Niven Price building only holds about 60 people. So we're going to hit that number fairly quickly, with the priority being downtown property business owners, town staff, and Main Street Advisory Board members and Board of Commissioners, most of whom I think have RSVP'd that they would be coming, that y'all will be coming. Main Street uses what's called an asset-based economic development approach, which is why you see this term here, what are downtown's assets? Instead of looking at traditional economic development has said what do we not have and how do we get it? So we don't have a factory, how do we incentivize a factory? Asset-based economic development, the approach that Main Street uses is to say what are we already good at, what are we already doing well, and how do we build on that? So this is going to be very much focused on the unique downtown context. This really isn't a community-wide endeavor. And this is looking specifically at downtown and trying to come away with a broad vision that lists out those assets on the night of the 19th. Friday morning, then it is just the Main Street Advisory Board and any commissioners who would like to be a part of the conversation that morning. But it's a much smaller focus group where we actually take that vision that was established and translate it into an actionable work plan. The final deliverable for this project is a Main Street Advisory Board work plan, similar to what we do each year. But it will be with a renewed vigor and a validation of the context, since that really hasn't been done in a while.
so kind of netting it down. You're going to spend time understanding what our strengths and assets are of the downtown. Create a statement that describes where we want to take that in the future, and then the next day build a work plan, start to build a work plan that supports that.
That's right.
Those three things.
That's right.
And the focus is downtown And the ultimate goal is to bring that back to the Board of Commissioners for approval and go forward, just
Right.
like we do everything else from a work plan and et cetera.
Right. That's correct. And so there was an acknowledgement, back in July that work plan would end up changing, but we wanted to just continue moving the program forward until we had something else adopted. So we went ahead and presented something. But yes, we would come back, say, hey, this is what we heard that night. This is what was worked through that morning. Is this indeed where the board wants to go? And I think that what I would think would be really neat, the night of the 19th, we have the Main Street board members will be kind of set up as table facilitators to help guide people through any questions that the North Carolina Main Street Director team is posing. But since commissioners are coming, perhaps we have a commissioner at each table to make sure that conversation's staying within the rails and that it is not working against and is certainly working towards the same kind of goals that Jeff is putting forth at the end of this month.
I'm comfortable with that flow personally, and obviously every board member will want to weigh in, but I think whatever, maybe a re-communication or a clarification as to alignment to this flow versus a broadcast message from the WBA that went out. It truly did, because I'm a WBA member, gave the impression that everybody can come and help craft the vision.
Okay.
Anybody and everybody can just weigh in on, and and everybody will decide then. Not really, it didn't lay it out as well as it could.
And I haven't seen that email announcement, but I was planning on attending the WBA tomorrow morning.
Perfect, and
so
explain it clearly to them. Yeah. Because it didn't even, all it said was you just need to RSVP. It didn't say anything that you're going to reject anybody or anything like that. It's just like everybody's invited to the party, let's go have fun.
Sure.
Meanwhile, we need a bouncer at the door because we have a space limit.
Yeah. So, other comments, questions, thoughts?
So I just have one question. So how does the TAP grant play into this? Are we kind of covering where we are to this point with that within the presentation, or is that just not a part of the workshop or forum?
So I've provided information in advance to the North Carolina Main Street staff that includes information about TAP grant, ULI study, town-owned real estate RFP, so that they have that important context. And then the Main Street Advisory Board, of course, they're intimately acquainted with all those topics, so that during any discussion, you have somebody at each table who is knowledgeable of that sort of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Well, maybe the follow-on question is, or comment would be, let's make sure we're not going back and redoing the TAP grant input, and
Oh, yeah.
we're moving ahead. We don't get one more chance to go redefine what it is.
Thank you.
I was
Yeah.
just,
Okay.
I was just wondering, are we going to have maybe like a sandwich board kind of representation there in the room so that people can know what decision has been made if they're not up to speed with that?
Yeah, well, we can look
Yeah.
at what kind of visual aids can be provided that night.
And you would ask us at the table to reiterate the point that the TAP grant is done.
It's done,
In
yeah.
place and moving,
Yes.
not open for discussion.
Yes, that'd be great.
All right, is everybody clear? Everybody more comfortable? Thanks Kurt for coming forward. Is everybody? All right. I think that does it. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're done.